as I say, there, it's about 60 years, give or take, depending on when the cutoff is, of minimal change to the Superman costume as we knew it in the greater popular consciousness. All right. Obviously, the comic books change things up occasionally. The red and blue Superman, even back in the day. Certainly, they do this and that. You can't compare when you're talking about elements of the story or elements of the look or whatever. You just can't compare the comics to the movies because they're different mediums. Everybody says, well, how can you say that you don't like this in the Batman v Superman movie? It came from the comics. First of all, no, it didn't. It was an idea presented out of context. But the comics are a playground where you've got a new story every month or so, and things can change. It's a place to try new ideas, and the culture says no to it, or the readers say no to it, or whatever. It's also a place where a lot of boneheaded ideas have been, thrown out there. You just can't say because something was in the comics that, oh, therefore it should be in a film. Films are a little bit more permanent with culture, and so it's a different thing. And when I say that this over 60 years, there was very minimal change in the Superman costume there. I mean, look you got Kirk Alyn and George Reeves starting in the black and white, but the colors were still supposed to be there. You saw that when the George Reeves series went into color. The light blue suit, the yellow belt, the yellow and red S shield, and the S is actually an S. Again, I know the comics, well, what about that comic run when it was more like that? The S is an S. It's not a Kryptonian symbol. It's an S. And if you do want to put it back on Krypton, like the Donner film did, it's still clearly an S, as it is on Jor-El's chest and so forth. The red cape, the red boots, and the red trunks. They're necessary. It's non-debatable. They're necessary. It's not even a matter. You can not like them aesthetically. That's fine. But they are necessary to the costume. They're necessary to the color balance. They're necessary to root the character's strength in the core. There's nothing like this nonsense of, oh, it was in the 30s and 40s and it's over now. So professional wrestlers don't wear trunks now. So power lifters don't wear some variation of a singlet, trunks or whatever. No, it's not dated by any means. As you can see here, there's very little variation. Now, the little more variation than even I would have liked came with the Superman Returns. Love Brandon Routh in the role. For all the problems with that movie, he was a great Superman. And the movie had some wonderful Superman moments. And I didn't like the rubbery texture of the suit. I didn't like the smaller, high up shield and the low, but whatever. Those little changes that I didn't like none of them were deal breakers though, because all of the elements of the suit were still there. The blue suit, the red cape, the yellow belt, the red trunks, the red boots. I mean, it was all there. And even the neckline, it's not blue, red, blue. It's just blue, red. The cape is a cape. It's tucked in, and that's how it is. It's not that we don't need a collar. He doesn't need a Dracula collar or anything like that. 60 years, very minimal change. A little tweak here or there. Over 60 years, the costume pretty much remained the same. But you talk to anybody nowadays, and they act like it's just a given that things have to be updated. Oh, but come on. I mean, yeah, that was how long ago? It's time to update. It's time to update. This is a ridiculous Gen Z notion born of today's culture of I gots to have a new phone. It's been 2 months. Oh my gosh, that TikTok is so yesteryear. That was done like last week. We're on the new stuff now. This is that culture that we're in today where, oh, update. Everything's going to be updated. Which is ironic because in terms of actual fashion and style, over the last 10 to 20 years, that's started to slow to where that hasn't changed much. I mean, there's just, there's nothing like a change. Even you can go back to the 2000s. You might say, oh, well, maybe early 2000s, frosted tips in hair or something like that. Maybe a little bit. It's just not much. The change, culture has ground to a halt when we're looking at fashion and stuff like that. Aesthetics, architecture, and all of that. It's really ground to a halt when it comes to changes because everything is about the technology. So the people crying out for updates, it's really not about aesthetics. I mean, maybe you find a certain individual who might say that. It's about attention span. It's about attention span. They can't handle looking at anything that looks old. If you want to catch our attention, you got to do it new and flashy and lights and pretty this and that and all this kind of nonsense. No. These characters These characters are not your flavor of the month, teeny bopper melodrama. These characters are iconic. These characters are icons of our culture. They're archetypal. They're serving these certain archetype roles, and their look taps into a timelessness. The look taps into a timelessness that speaks to us, via symbolism, not via current fashion. So it's ridiculous, this idea that, oh, we gotta update. And that was forced. In the comics, it came forced with Dan DiDio and the New 52. And then the Man of Steel movie just jumped on and ran with that. And now there's this notion that, oh, it's a new movie. Of course we got to have a new suit. We got to have a new suit. Just look at that right there. Look at Christopher Reeve's suit from 1978 into Dean Cain's suit from, in the 90s. I mean, we're 20 years later right there already, or close to it, whatever. 15 years maybe or something like that. And the suit's still basically the same. I mean, maybe a shade of darker here and there, but the suit's basically the same. This stupid notion that it's got to be updated is absurd. There are elements of this in the Superman Legacy costume, sure. I mean, it's got trunks, which you might say, well, isn't that good that it's got trunks? I got to tell you, if there was ever a costume that could actually make the trunks look stupid, it's the Superman Legacy costume. And that's not a criticism of trunks. Trunks are necessary to the costume, but that's just a criticism of the rest of the stupid costume. One element that I haven't mentioned yet about all of these costumes, skin tight. Okay? Just fabric against the skin. Because he's Superman. He doesn't need padding. He doesn't need armor. If he's going to go up against somebody like that in a special circumstance, maybe he'll wear a special suit. But this is Superman. It's the cloth and the skin. Now, maybe people wore padding underneath it at different times or whatever, but in terms of the suit design, it's supposed to be the suit, and it's just on his muscles, period. You look at that Superman Legacy ridiculous costume, and it almost looks like a knockoff Halloween costume, where it's like the foam, where like he moves a certain way, and you see it bunch and wrinkle up. It's like, and there's pads on it, there's little pads and elbow pad. Like, no, this is ridiculous. They took the spacesuit idea from like Guardians of the Galaxy and just like threw a few Superman, logos and whatnot, and it pretended that it had trunks on it. No, to be honest, Sound Engraver pointed this out a couple of streams ago when we were talking about this in the first reveal. Would not be surprised if they went ahead and brought the trunks back now, so they could try to make the trunks look stupid, so they could say, all right, guys, that's it. We're never doing the trunks again. No, the trunks are necessary. Updates don't work. Updates are ridiculous. You can't do an update to something that's timeless, to something that's this legendary, this iconic, this archetypal. That's what this is for. But you can't talk to people that today, because they are so enmeshed in today's thinking, so enmeshed in today's looking for something new, looking for the next big thing. We've got to have the next big thing. I'm sure that I'm sure there's going to be good things about that Superman in that movie. I'm sure, but James Gunn's already told me from the way he approaches Superman and the way he thinks about Superman that he doesn't understand the character. He's a big old galoot. He's somebody that the people can think is kind of oafish, and maybe at the end of the day we're inspired by him, whatever, but silly old oaf. That's James Gunn thinking about Superman. And it doesn't work. And you're not going to, but see, people can't, they can't help it. They can't help it. Oh, but it's new, and I gotta watch the YouTube videos that talk about it. I'm not gonna see it, but I'm gonna watch every YouTube review talking about it. You might as well go see it 1,000 times, because you're putting it into culture, and you're this is why I'm so unplugged. I'm so much happier for it. I'm so much happier for just being straight up unplugged from society and all of the nonsense that's out there today. It's someone, in the last stream, people were asking me about, did you see the Kevin Costner Western or whatever? Like, nope. And I'm so glad. I don't know that maybe that movie would be fine. Maybe it won't be. I don't care. It's just like, I don't follow new stuff. Al still follows everything new, of course. And Fan Man, can't help himself but to follow all the new news, even when it, boils his blood. But, man, I am just so much happier watching tried and true classics. There's a plethora, a wealth of films that I haven't seen yet. I'll talk about some of the stuff I've been watching and reading this week in a moment. But yeah, culture will never change. Hollywood will never change as long as people keep giving it attention. And it doesn't matter if it's bad attention. It doesn't matter if you're, yeah, but I was pointing out how, it doesn't matter. You gave it attention. Studio Super, thank you very much, sir. He said, everyone thinks in order to stick around and to keep being relevant, you got to keep reinventing the wheel every time. And that's ridiculous. I mean, my thumbnail pointed it out there. It proved that wrong. You don't have to keep reinventing Superman. No, he was a relevant character. Would still be a lot more relevant than he is today if people weren't trying to update him, and all that nonsense. But Mr. D-Man says they reinvent because they're creatively bankrupt. Yeah, I mean, if they were really doing, I would like nothing more. And this you might think, how can you say that as a Superman fan? But I would like nothing more than for Hollywood never to speak the word Superman again for 20 years, even. Just stop it. I think we're at a place now where the more Hollywood, and when I say Hollywood, I just mean the multi, the big movie industry, which is, Hollywood pretty much covers all of that. But you might have this independent or that or whatever. But just the Hollywood, industry, the beast itself. The more attention they pay something, the more they're just going to tear it down. The more they're just going to oversaturate it in the consciousness and get and keep trying to do so many versions of it. I mean, they've done that with Batman now. The word Batman doesn't mean a thing in popular culture. It used to. It used to mean an incredibly competent KNIGHT knight, somebody who was really there to provide justice. Now, so many people have successfully subverted that into people's thinking, where it just means a crazy, psycho-deranged vengeance seeker of the dark world. And there's so many different variations of that now that your average person on the street, the word Batman could mean anything. It doesn't really mean anything anymore, Superman's fast becoming that with all this nonsense. And James Gunn, with his quirky little approach, was just the boneheadedest idea. For my good English there, it's just the boneheadedest idea to choose to do these movies. I'm imagining though that it's going to come out and it's going to be hugely successful because people are already just chomping at the bit to love this movie. They can't wait to support and love this movie. They're just, boom, there are. Yeah, no, I've talked about all the problems with his thinking before.